Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here, General Milley, as well as Secretary Austin. Thank you for what you're doing today and your years of service to our country. And so those of us who've been in the business of military politics over a period of time are considered to be wise forecasters of what's going to happen. And sometimes we are, and sometimes we aren't. I can recall the early briefing on what we might expect in Ukraine when the Russian troops were all poised at the border. And if I remember it correctly, the prediction was that the city of Kyiv would fall in a matter of days and that major parts of Ukraine would fall to the Russians as well. Then they would find that the maintenance of order in, quote, conquered territory would be extremely difficult, and they would face a resistance for a long period of time. I remember that prediction as we all watched reality unfold. Kyiv today, thank goodness, is still not in the hands of the Russians, though it's under attack, I'm sure. And most of Ukraine has not been conquered by Russia, thank goodness. And they are apparently having a difficult time hanging on to what they currently have and are fighting to extend their reach every day. And I just wonder, we can assess it in many different ways, but certainly the courage and resilience of the Ukrainian people, first and foremost, is the reason for what we see, at least I think so. And I wonder what we've learned about Russia's military strength and what we anticipated they would deliver in the field and what they actually delivered. And I know it's been asked earlier by Senator Baldwin, but a declaration of war, what would that mean in terms of Putin's capabilities in extending his military reach in Ukraine? Secretary Austin.
Yeah, with your permission, I'll answer first, and if you want the chairman to respond as well, sir, certainly we'd offer that. We have learned a lot about Russia's leadership at the lower levels, which I think has been very, very key in this in their efforts here. They have modern equipment. They have lots of it. They have a doctrine that really wasn't followed, and so as we saw things unfold on the ground, we saw them not able to support themselves logistically. We saw them make some bad assumptions at the very beginning of this. We saw them fail to integrate aerial fires with their ground maneuver, and just a number of missteps. And I attribute a lot of that to lack of leadership at the lower level. And we saw Russia push its senior officers forward as a result of that, and many of those were killed from being forward on the battlefield. We'll see some of the same mistakes, some of the same weaknesses as they prosecute the fight in the Donbass and in the southern part of the country. But they will learn from the lessons learn from what they did in the early stages of this fight. And we'll see them improve their logistical efforts, and we'll see them improve their massing of fires and that sort of business. But some things they won't be able to correct. So we've learned a lot about their leadership at the lower levels and their level of training.
I'd like General Milley to respond, but there was a suggestion that if declaration of war took place, that something would happen automatically under Russian law of a conscription. And that suggests to me, as a civilian, that a lot of untrained men in this circumstance might be called into training and exercises that they aren't prepared for, they haven't been conditioned for. That doesn't seem like it would be an immediate boost to their effort.
That's exactly right, Senator. He would be able to mobilize more people, but to adequately train those people to be more effective than what we've seen on the battlefield thus far, that's questionable.
General Milley, if you'd respond to that question that I've asked earlier, and if you'd also add to your comments, since I'm running out of time, I have a particular concern about Poland and the Baltics, and they worry every step of the way of extension of Russian aggression into their region. I hope you'll address that in your comments.
Just very, very briefly, Senator. Declaration of war does have some implications inside Russian society legally. As the Secretary said, it would allow them to mobilize additional forces, but again, training, et cetera, how long it would take for them to get to the front. In terms of the lessons learned, leadership is clearly the key, from Zelensky on down to the lowest private. And as Napoleon taught us a long time ago, moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1. So they are capable. That is probably the most important difference right now between the Russians and the Ukrainians, is the leadership throughout the levels. In addition to that, it's what the Western nations, NATO and particularly the United States, taught their leaders since 2014 about mission command. The Ukrainians are practicing a decentralized, intent-based set of tactics. The Russians are practicing a top-down, very, very top-heavy, directive in nature sort of set of orders coming from the top, which is not necessarily the best thing to do in a dynamic battlefield. The second thing is the effective use of anti-tank weapons has been phenomenal on the part of the Ukrainians. Third is the denial of the airspace, air supremacy and air superiority to the Russians by the Ukrainians, and the effective use of ground air defense systems. Terrain has played to the Ukrainian favor. Intelligence is really important. The Ukrainians have a built-in intelligence system, being the people. So the Russians have walked into an area that is clearly unwelcome to them, and the people have provided a massive amount of intelligence. Plus, we have opened up the pipes, which I'm not going to go into detail here in an open hearing, but there's a significant amount of intelligence flowing to Ukraine from the United States. All of that in combination and many, many more are some of the early lessons learned that have made the difference as what you've seen. In terms of predictions, those were early assessments, and war is a dynamic interaction between competing wills. So between those predictions that you heard in early February and January, a lot of things happened on that battlefield in preparation prior to the invasion on the 24th, not the least of which is an intelligence flow from the United States. And that made a significant difference in outcomes.
Poland and the Baltics.
And Poland and Balkans. So Poland is
Baltics.
Yeah, Poland is clearly, these are all NATO Article 5 allies. As you know, the United States, under the direction of the President, Secretary of Defense, we went ahead and directed U.S. troops. So right now you have U.S. troops in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Hungary, all the entire belt has U.S. troops in there. And that was done immediately in order to reinforce the NATO Article 5 deterrence posture of the United States, and to assure our allies that they're not going to be left alone. So that is a critical component. As the President has said many, many times, as members of Congress have said many, many times, Article 5 matters. It's a Senate-ratified treaty, and the United States will not give up. We'll protect every inch of NATO territory.
Senator Graham.